All right. We are live, ladies and gentlemen, and it's another night of the Best Boys Center Ice Podcast 2025 Stanley Cup Playoff wrap-up show for the Tuesday night, the 29th of April. And we're getting some really good playoff hockey now, all up and down. I could say, the first couple of nights of the playoffs weren't that great, but I tell you what, it sure has picked up. And we have one team advancing tonight to the next round, Carolina, and there was a couple of one overtime game and
Two
overtime games. You're right, and then a very exciting game in LA to wrap things up.
it wasn't that exciting.
Oh yes, it was. So we gotta like to say that we're all up to date on our on the podcasts, the Best Boy Center Ice podcast, with the nightly wrap ups on our YouTube channel, which is on the Refocused Radio Network, and you can also get the I Am Refocused Radio podcast with Shemaya Reed, and also Sweep the League with Rudy Campos Jr. Rudy's doing a great job with the NBA playoffs as well.
Yeah,
and we're on there. It's all up to date, so you can go back and you can see the last
everything.
couple of weeks.
I will say I'm pretty thrilled with us. We've done a good job. We've been on here every night.
Every night. I think there was only one night that we missed that we had. I don't know if
that was night one. That was the first night that we did it the next day. Yeah. But other than that, we've been on every day, and honestly, it's more of become a habit and routine now that we're ready to go at 12. And it's nice because the later that we go on with these, it won't be as late that we'll be doing them anymore, because once the rounds get lessened, then the games will start being in more prime time slots.
So
we'll be done at 10,
yeah, we won't have to be like
to midnight, but it's worth it for right now with all the excitement.
Yeah.
But yeah,
like I said, Car, this the last few nights of the Stanley Cup playoffs have been just extremely entertaining, and you can't get any. You can look at the NBA playoffs, and I haven't even seen a minute of the NBA playoffs.
They haven't been as crazy as this. I don't think. There's been a couple of good moments, obviously tonight. I know Indiana just advanced tonight, beating Milwaukee in the last second of the game. But other than that, nothing else has really been that crazy compared to this, where there's been tons of overtime games and tons of momentum switches. But I guess at this point, we kind of get started with our daily recap and then kind of preview tomorrow's games afterwards. But
yeah. So let's start out with that nasty. That Battle of Ontario is getting pretty.
All I've got to say is the Toronto Maple Leafs continue to Toronto Maple Leaf
yes.
every season in the playoffs, and it's become a running joke, but it's becoming more and more true, because the Leafs up 3-0 in the series. Like I mentioned yesterday, Leafs haven't done much of anything. I've won a Stanley Cup since 1967. They hadn't won a playoff round, I believe, since 2004, before they finally did in 2023, and then they were quickly beaten by the Panthers after that. And the Leafs were up 3-0 in the series. And now Ottawa won at home Game 4 overtime. Jake Sanderson scored. Game 5 in Toronto, the Senators shut them out at home.
And the Senators did the shutout with only having 19 shots on goal.
Did you see after Tkachuk got his empty netter, he was kind of waving at the fans when he scored? But yeah, it's crazy. Like they have a stigma. Dad and I were just talking about this last night. They have a stigma with the Toronto Maple Leafs there that they cannot play in the playoffs, and they can't do it. They outshot Ottawa, but they didn't outplay Ottawa. I feel like Ottawa did a good job at keeping things at bay and really just playing their game, and now they can go back home and tie it up just like that. In the matter of a couple of days, it can be tied up.
And it's so funny because of the 4 goals, right, that Ottawa scored, only one was a true 5-on-5. They got a shorthanded goal and 2 empty net goals. So
I'm happy for them, though. They deserve it.
Yes,
I mean,
they do.
That fan base is going to be going crazy. Canadian Tire Center is going to be awesome on. I'm assuming eventually they play Thursday, so that place is going to be going crazy. I'm excited to watch that game, and I just don't see another way that this doesn't go to 7 games because it's the Leafs. I mean, I really don't, and it would be another heartbreaking ending for them if they lose in 7 games for like the millionth time. They
Mhm.
lose Game 7 at home. This would top everything that they've ever done though. Being down or being up 3-0 in the series. Forget what was it, 2011 or 2013? Probably I think it was 2013. Um, Up on Boston 3-1 and then they or 4-1 in the third or whatever and they tie it and Boston ends up winning the game in overtime.
Mhm.
All the series leads that they've had where they've blown them, lost in 7. This would take the cake being up 3-0 because that's the one thing I don't think the Leafs have done in a long time is be up 3-0 only to lose if
Yeah,
they've ever done it before. And
and
they're
there's a
only 2 games away from it now.
good opportunity because like you said, Ottawa going back to back home,
Yeah.
picking up
I if
momentum.
yeah, if I'm a sports bettor, I'm smashing the money line on Ottawa winning um on Thursday. I can't see it not happening. I really can't. I mean, I mentioned yesterday after that game 4. Toronto had their chance to put that thing away with a double minor penalty in overtime, and they didn't do it. They didn't score.
Yeah,
And then Ottawa quickly after won the game. And you knew it wasn't going to be just a rinky-dink win, and then they're going to get their butts kicked. They ended up kicking Toronto's butts,
yeah,
and they
and
that's not a good way to go out. Back to Ottawa's getting shut out. That's not good.
and then Allmark 29 saves for a
Yeah.
shutout,
He's
and
found his form at the right time.
yeah, he was a little sketchy going into the
Well,
playoffs, but he's
well,
found his form, and
he definitely has in games 4 and 5. I mean, he
Mhm.
shut down that power playing overtime, came up big in those saves, and then he shuts them out. I mean, they're going home. They have all the energy and momentum at this point. I mean, they lost the first 3 games. No one cares about that now because they've won the 2. But yeah, that's going to be an interesting game 6 to say the least.
So Toronto still leads the series 3-2, but when you look at the history of the Toronto Maple Leafs, yeah, they could be in trouble if they lose in Ottawa coming up here. But yeah, I think it would be Thursday night.
Hmm.
Now, the one team did make it to the second round, and we see it here on the graphic,
Hmm.
and that the Carolina Hurricanes needed overtime, but they beat the New Jersey
That
Devils
was a
5-4.
wacky game. I mean, New Jersey was up 3-0 in the first, and then in the matter of before even the first commercial break in the second, the Canes scored 3 goals and tied the game.
Yeah.
And then right after that, the Devils scored to take the lead, and then the Canes tied it, and then it goes to OT and tons of chances and just no goals for them. They outshot the Devils by a good margin, and then they go to double OT and they 4-minute double minor penalty, so another penalty that
Mm-hmm.
kills the Devils here, and
Mm-hmm.
they get scored on. And I mean Markstrom played a great game, but you can't expect the Canes not to bite you on that with a double minor penalty. And the
And
Devils killed the first half of it, but I mean it doesn't matter.
it used to be back in the day when I was growing up watching overtime hockey in the playoffs, referees didn't blow anything. They put their whistles away. I'm noticing a lot, like they'll in the Oilers overtime game against the Kings the other night. They did put the whistle away until he couldn't anymore. And that was that
And even then, people
penalty.
were upset that they even blew it on that because people, the whole McBaby, people think he's flopping
Yeah.
and diving around and stuff. But yeah, I mean, that was an obvious. I mean, it was a very borderline call because it was a follow. I felt like it was a follow through of a pass attempt, but they didn't think so, and they blew it as a penalty, and it bites the Devils. And I mean, to be honest, I don't think. I think regardless that penalty doesn't happen, I still think the Canes win the game. To be honest, they were carrying the play in the overtime.
So now the Hurricanes wait for the winner of the Washington Montreal series, and Washington leads that series three
Which
to
I feel
one.
like we'll talk about that in a second. I feel like those two teams haven't played in a long time. It feels like forever
I
since
know it seems
Washington
like
and
forever
Montreal's
since
been on
Washington and
TV.
Montreal played. They do play tomorrow night. So the Canes move on to the second round. A game that also went to overtime, and it almost didn't go to overtime
Oh, so
between Minnesota
heartbreaking.
and Vegas.
So
Vegas
heartbreaking.
wins 3-2, and so we'll get to they win 3-2, and the overtime winner came about four
Ah,
minutes in. Howden got the
Howden.
overtime win. Okay,
Oh,
so go. I wasn't able to watch the game
heartbreaking.
because I was watching the
Am I
Oilers.
gonna have to? I'm gonna need to analyze this for you.
Yeah, could you like
Okay.
that? There
Yes.
was a goal that was called back
Yes, there was. So
for Minnesota.
yes. So uh, Vegas had a 2-1 lead early in this game, and then Minnesota tied it. Matt Boldy got his 5th goal of the series.
Wow.
So he's a goal per game in the series, and then you go down to the last few minutes, and it's crazy. Vegas didn't have a shot for the first 14 minutes of the third, or 13, 14 minutes of the third period. Gustafson actually got removed from this game because he had an illness. So Marc-Andre Fleury came in the third period. So a bit of a storyline there that he came in cold basically and shut the Knights down for the regulation. And then you go down the last couple minutes, there's like a minute 15 left, and it was Ryan Hartman that drove to the net and he put a shot right off of the shoulder of Aiden Hill, and the puck went back off of Hill and actually deflected off of Hartman's shin pad and went in the net. And so it was called a good goal. And then at first they were looking at it thinking it was a kick. They call it no kick. Then Vegas challenges it for offside, and it's deemed to be offside. Skate is barely over the line before the puck, and it was offside, which I think is the dumbest rule because it has nothing to do with the goal happening. But it goes offside, and then overtime happens, and you can just tell by the way it's going. Vegas is controlling it. Something's going to happen. It's the dam's going to break open, and sure enough, um, that was a nice play for Howden to get that. It was basically a pass from behind the net, and he was left open in the slot and goal. Bye. Like, game over. And heartbreaking way for the Wild to lose because, again, I know the rule's a rule, but it didn't have any impact on the goal. They should have won the game, and they didn't. And now they have to go home and win to keep their series or season alive.
You've got to hand it to not just the Vegas off ice video guys, but the video guys that watch for that, and no one, you have to go back in a split second and see.
And I don't think that they would have. I don't think they would have challenged it if they weren't looking at it for a kicking motion, because I don't think they saw anything until they actually looked at it after while they were challenging the first time.
Yeah.
But heartbreaking, and unfortunately, that seems to be the theme for Minnesota sports, is that it's just a heartbreak, endless heartbreak, that they can't catch a break to do anything. And what looked like Minnesota was going to be up 3-2 going home, now they're down 3-2 going back home. They have to win these next 2 games.
Yeah, and they're going home, so they have a good shot of tying the series back up in Minnesota. And again, assuming that this game would be a Thursday night game.
Yes, it will be. Yeah,
Vegas. Now, for the game of the
we
night,
have to talk about them again. Yes, we always talk about the Oilers.
The Edmonton Oilers go into LA, tied 2-2 with the Kings. No, the road team hadn't won a game.
I thought they were down 3-0.
No, that was last year in the Stanley Cup Finals. So no.
I got to poke fun little jabs every now and then.
Believe me, everybody knows he does this all the time. He's done this since he was a little kid. So no road team has won a game in this series yet. So Edmonton, off the momentum of the overtime win, and even off the momentum of the last 2 games in Edmonton, we were talking about it after the game the other night.
It's like a why not thing. Why not them? Why not the Oilers?
Yeah. And then we were saying that the Oilers have to start better because in the 4 games previous, the Kings have outplayed them in the first 2 periods of the hockey game. Well, they must have heard the podcast the other night because
we've got new viewers.
They turned it around, and I think out in the first period
19-4.
Yeah, 19-4 the shots in the first period.
I know it's crazy because I turned on the Gamecast, and it was like 5-4 the shots at that point. I'm okay. I figured, and there was still a little bit of time, like 7-8 minutes left. I'm okay. And then I checked it like 15 minutes later, and it said 19-4. I'm like, what in the world happened in those 7 minutes?
The Oilers, as I said, one of the keys to them is they have to get more shots on Kemper, because Kemper is a fantastic goaltender. But if you keep peppering him, and tonight they got 46 shots on, the shots on goal from Edmonton in the last 3 games have been unbelievable.
When they said it on the broadcast there, right at the end of the game, he stopped over 93, almost, I think 90 of 93, or like 93 shots he's faced in the last 2 games.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. He's getting a lot more rubber.
And tonight you're right, because Calvin Pickard, he only faced 22 shots. and we'll get into this in a little bit, but Pick, again, may not have been the busier of the two. He may not be the better of the two goaltenders, but he's making saves. And the last save off with his pad late when the Kings were pressing with a 6-on-5 that led to Nugent Hopkins' goal that's Calvin Pickard making saves when he needs to make them. He gets his third win in a row. The Oilers win 3-1 and again, the Kings get the first goal of the game on a power play. And that's the one thing that's keeping the Kings in this series is their power play. And I'm not sure where they're at, but they're well over 50. I think they're right
8 for 18. 8 for 18 they beat.
Just a little shy
of 50%. They're like at 46%. Yeah. It's some crazy, still a great number.
Their power play is keeping them alive, but their 5-on-5 is not doing anything.
You know what? As a hockey fan, or I'll say for me as a neutral fan, since the Penguins aren't in this, I was very disappointed with the Kings' effort tonight. You go back home after that crushing loss because they were 25 seconds away from winning that game. And like I said yesterday and the day before that, all it took was that Byfield clear and the Kings would have won that game.
Yep.
Completely.
Totally different.
This is crazy to think about this, but 48 hours later where we're at right now, this series could be over. Yep. We could be talking about the Oilers getting eliminated, and now they're up 3-2. But that deflating loss happens, but it's still a clean slate. It's like 0-0 again. That's a best of 3, right? LA's going back home in front of those crazy fans in LA. They love their sports teams, packing that arena. You would think the Kings would have played such a great game, and they didn't. They didn't get anything going from the jump. Even that 6-on-5, I feel like they didn't really have much going. They were just passing it around, getting stuff.
It was on the outer.
Well, in that power play in the third period, not much anything going. They did not play a good game, and the Oilers pounced all over it, and now they go back home with a chance to close it out and get it done. But again, the fourth game's always the hardest. But yeah, as a neutral fan, very disappointed to see the effort from LA. They just didn't really show up. It looked like they just right from the beginning, the Oilers were all over them, and LA was basically back the whole time playing defense.
You could look back at the Game 3 and Game 4, and the Game 3 challenge that was missed.
Yes, because they did not need to do that.
And then the Byfield can't clear in Game 4
because that challenge game was tied at that point. So you would have been just at again neutral ground, and I think at that point the Kings were at the advantage because they were tied in Edmonton in the third period.
Yeah,
but I mean that's again how quickly this sport can change. We're talking about a 3-2 series now that could have been a 4-0 series, could have been a 4-1 tonight, and now that Oilers have a chance to do the reverse sweep and get them done. And you know what? I think the win has come out of the sails of the LA Kings. Unless something drastic changes, I don't see them winning in Edmonton. I think they had their chance and they blew it. And it's not one singular person or player's fault, but it's just been a culmination of small errors for the Kings, like I said yesterday, that have led to their demise. That coach's challenge in Game 3, missed clearing attempt in Game 4. Game 5, we look at tonight, maybe they pulled their goalie a bit too early. Even though the Oilers didn't score that quickly on it, 3 minutes and change, and you've already pulled them out. And you're not down 2, you're down 1.
Yeah.
That's a risky move that could have hurt them quicker than that. The Oilers could have gotten the puck and scored like within 20 seconds, and you still have 3.5 minutes. So just those little errors, I think, that are showing the inexperience of Jim Hiller in comparison. And then the inexperience of the LA Kings as far as their decision making, besides, the veterans like Doughty and Kopitar, but like Byfield's never really played in the playoffs before. A lot of those guys haven't, and that's the little things that matter that they're not able to execute. And that's you look at the series, the Oilers for a longer term period of time have been not as great as the Kings, but it's the Kings' minor mistakes that take like 5 seconds that are screwing them so bad that are having
the Oilers are taking advantage of those mistakes.
Yeah, like I did not think after Game 2. I'm sorry, but I didn't think after Game 2 the Oilers were going to come back because the Kings were dominating them, and then they completely just shifted. The Oilers just turned onto their Oiler gear and are red hot. Like they're playing red hot, and the whole lineup now has started contributing. You had Kane and Yanmark tonight with goals tonight. Even Nuge, I know he's a bigger guy, but he hasn't really been a factor until recently. So it's nice to see, honestly, not McDavid and Draisaitl on all these goals.
Yeah.
Because now they're going to be ready to go in Game 6 to
Mhm.
make that difference and get it done.
Yeah. Like, I think the X factor, especially in the last 3 games, has been Evander Kane. He's gotten a couple of goals, but he's physical play.
But
I
timely
think,
goals,
and
he's had.
that's
Very timely goals.
and that's what I said earlier when way back during the season when we were talking about Evander Kane and being injured. I said when he comes back, he brings that physicality that
Yeah.
the Oilers sorely missed during the regular season
Yeah.
because they were out hit the entire
By
regular season
all year.
all year. So you get Evander. I think that's your X factor is Evander Kane with a
Now-
couple of goals and some physical play. And
He's been key,
Klingberg,
he's been key for the Oilers. Now, I look at this series, I don't care which way it goes, whether LA or Edmonton wins. I have to give my A+ star rating to Darcy Kemper, no matter if they lose or win, because a lot of these games, the Oilers could have twice as many goals if it's not for him. He's the only reason the Kings are alive. Even tonight, it's crazy with how many shots the Oilers had. He only allowed 2 the whole
Yeah.
night. He's been a great goalie, and he deserves a big payday if he hasn't already gotten one from what his contract is, or to be like he's got to be a mainstay on any team at this point. He's proven himself.
And the one thing I did notice in the last few games with Kemper, it's not. I don't think it's really his fault. Well, he does give up rebounds, but the Kings aren't clearing. The Kings are giving the Oilers a second, a third shot. They're not clearing guys out. They're not getting the puck out of there. They're giving the Oilers those.
And I
extra
think that's
chances.
Kemper's style. I don't think Kemper is much of a goalie to be able to really trap pucks. He's able to stop them, but he needs his defense there to clear him, and they haven't. You're right. He can make a save, and they're not there to take care of the mess, and he's diving around trying to find the puck, and the Oilers are getting, I've noticed, you probably noticed it too, the Oilers are getting a lot of action behind the net, where
Yeah.
they're able to get the puck behind the net and then kind of like manipulate the play, whether they can go for a wraparound or
Mhm.
pass it up through the slot and try to get something. They've really been able to work the back of the net, which I think is not something we're used to seeing the Oilers do. We're used to seeing them work on the sidewalls with the McDavid and Draisaitl,
One of the
but they're controlling behind the goal line, which is
one of,
important.
one of the best guys at doing that is Corey Perry. He's
Yeah.
one of the best guys I've seen in a long time playing from behind the net.
Especially trapping it behind. Like
Mhm.
he's able to keep it strong back there. But
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. I mean, big win for the Oilers. We were both finally on the same page today,
Mhm.
having the Oilers win tonight. I mean, they deserved it, and I mean I think they've pretty much got control of this. They just got to play like they did. Play
Yeah.
another whole 60 minutes. You can't be going back to the bad habits of playing the first 40. Man,
Right from the start, you got to put your pedal to the
because
metal.
well, now LA is going to be coming out there like we're going to go home if we don't show up.
Yep.
We want to go to LA and play another game. We don't want to go to LA and be on vacation.
No,
But yeah,
exactly.
tonight's games were great. Again, we had Ottawa come back and beat Toronto again, so now they're down 3-2. Carolina, like we mentioned, you see on there, first team to advance to the second round. They beat the Devils 4-1 in the series and 5-4 in overtime or double overtime tonight. The Vegas Golden Knights squeak out a overtime win against the Wild, and then the Oilers again come up big in LA and beat the Kings, and now they're up 3-2. Both of those VGK and Edmonton are up 3-2 in those. Tomorrow's games. Now we have 3 or 4 games tomorrow.
There are, let's see, hang on.
I'd imagine 4 because I
Three
think
games.
Washington and Montreal are tomorrow, Florida, Tampa Bay is tomorrow, and then Winnipeg, St. Louis.
Yeah, so there's 3 games tomorrow.
Okay.
2 of them could be clinchers. It's Montreal and Washington first. That's a 6:00 start. Panthers and Lightning. That could be a clincher for the Panthers. That's at 6:30. And then the late game at 8:30 is the Jets and the Blues, and that's tied at 2.
I'm interested for that game.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's out of all of them going to be my game to watch because how is Hellebuck going to respond after being pulled twice in a row? Their backs are against the wall. They've got the pressure on them now because of how they've played the last 2 games. Again, you look at all the whole series of, the whole 240 minutes of this series so far. the Jets have been the better team. Or not the Jets, the Blues have been the better team throughout. And now they gotta go into Winnipeg. And the Jets, if they don't win in Winnipeg, their season could be over
Yep.
like that. And that President's Trophy curse could live on.
It's like I don't know what it is about teams that win the President's Trophy
Yeah.
recently. They just, you can be
It's a
the best
stigma.
team in the NHL, but it's like it doesn't. When you get to the playoffs, everybody's at even. Everybody's even.
Yeah, it's doesn't matter about seeding, but what are your I'll go ahead and give my predictions for tomorrow, and then you can give me
Okay.
your thoughts and see what you think.
Okay.
So tomorrow I have Washington closing out Montreal tomorrow. I think Montreal's given all they have at this point, and I think that series is pretty much done. Their chance was to get back in game 4, and they couldn't. There's just been a lot of physicality in the series, and I think Washington's veteran leadership is going to be able to excel and propel them to the second round matchup with Carolina. I think that Tampa Bay comes back at home and forces game 6 back in Sunrise again. I think they're too good of a team to go down like that after the disappointment in game 4 where they blew it late in the game. And then finally in Winnipeg, I think the Blues come back there and take that game again. I think they've got all the momentum by their side. They've played better. They've scored a lot of goals. They figured out how to score a lot of goals against that team. And I think the Jets are going to be too sloppy and too careful trying to not take penalties that they're going to allow the Blues to still control 5-on-5 and make stuff happen because they've been able to.
Yeah. Well, we're almost the same. Not quite.
You have Montreal, or you have Winnipeg winning, right?
I have Montreal beating Washington. I just think Washington will win the series. They'll win the series, but I think Montreal will come up and they'll just fight like they have all season. I think Montreal gets this. It's going to be close, but I think Montreal gets this game. But then I think Washington will wrap it up in Montreal in game 6. Now, I agree with you. I think the Lightning will come back and win this one and make it 3-2. And I've got the Blues just because they have nothing to lose. They could, they weren't even supposed to be tied 2-2.
They've been playing playoff hockey for over a month.
Yeah,
because they needed all those wins at the end of the season.
The Jets have been kind of coasting. And
you know what? When that all happened at the beginning of the year, and the Jets were like 10-0 or whatever at the beginning of the year, I'm like, this isn't good for them because they're going to be so far ahead that they're not going to have the intensity of the playoffs because there's no reason for them to go to the wall for it because they've already got it. They're already in. They're already in, and they don't have anything to really worry about.
No.
But meanwhile, the Blues have been every game, no matter who they were playing the last month, they had to win, and they were playing that way that they had to win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they've been the hotter. They've been out of all these teams, they've been the hottest team because their last month was remarkable.
Yeah,
and won 12 games in a row. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, I think so that's what I think we're going almost the same except for the Montreal Washington game. So let's go over the series, the brackets so far in the East. Again, Carolina's the first team, as you can see, that are into the second round. They beat New Jersey 4-1. Toronto leads Ottawa now 3-2 after Ottawa shut out tonight. As we mentioned, Washington leads Montreal 3-1, playing game 5 game 5 at home. Florida leading Tampa Bay 3-1, and that game will be tomorrow night. Out west, we talked about Winnipeg, St. Louis tied at 2-2, and then Dallas leads Colorado 3-2. That's going into Colorado for game 6. Vegas leads Minnesota thanks to their win tonight in overtime 3-2, and they're heading to Minnesota for game 6. And then the Edmonton Oilers heading home for game 6, leading the Kings 3-2 after a very impressive 3-1 win tonight in LA against the Kings. So tomorrow night, we should be on the air probably between 11 and 11:30.
Barring no overtime, which honestly in that game, I would be okay with an overtime in that game.
Yeah. So we'll
I think that is the only series that hasn't had an overtime yet.
I think you're right.
Wait, did Tampa and Florida have one yet?
We'd have to go.
No, I don't think they did.
No.
I think Tampa and Florida and Tampa, Tampa. It's weird saying Tampa, Florida, because it's the
Yeah,
actual city. But Tampa Bay and Florida haven't played in overtime, and then St. Louis and Winnipeg haven't. But I would like to see an overtime in that Winnipeg series.
yeah,
But yeah, we should be on 11 to 11:30, give or take Central Time,
right.
at the conclusion of that game, and we'll have our updated bracket board and see if we have any teams as well joining Carolina in the second
There's
round tomorrow.
two
There's
two
two
chances
chances.
for Florida and Washington to move on.
Yep.
All right, so we're going to wrap things up for tonight. We of course appreciate you joining us, and you can catch this on our Best Boy Center
And
Ice podcast
Spreaker.
YouTube channel tomorrow, also on Spreaker.com, and then this will be available here on Facebook. The playback, you can play it back here in just a few minutes, and we'll be sharing it in the morning because it's already 12:37.
No, we are in the morning.
We are in the morning, and we're going to be back again here for another night of exciting 2025 Stanley Cup playoff hockey with the Best Boys. And in the meantime, and in between time, everybody have a great hockey night.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Bye, Dad.
Bye, son.